morning and welcome to Beautiful Orchid Trail on a beautiful sunshiny morning with the blue skies. Today I want to talk about orchids that are easy to grow. And once you get orchids growing, you learn from them. You see them grow and you learn from them. And what I did is I wanted more orchids after that. So I've got a few examples here today. I want to talk about each one. Now this guy is called the Cockleshell Orchid, and it's a sequential bloomer, and it's just a gorgeous little bloom that sits upside down, and it blooms all summer. You can see this lead is done for the summer, but it hangs in my shade house on the east side, gets morning sun through pool screen, and it does very well. See the yellow color? It's getting enough sun. If they're real dark green, they're not getting enough sun. But this is a wonderful plant. It grows fast and it'll bloom all summer long for you. Now this next one, it's a species plant. This next one is a species plant also. It's called Maxillariella tenuifolia, or the coconut orchid. And I like this for a couple of reasons. Number one is coconut cream pie is my favorite pie, and it smells just like that. And it grows on the west side of my shade house, and it gets a lot more sun. It gets the afternoon sun. See, it's got the small leaves, and it blooms in the spring, and it's got a small brown bloom that just smells so good. And this plant's probably 15 years old or more. My friends Ralph and Judy Nagel gave it to me, and it was that big around. So that's the other thing plants do. They live a long time if you're lucky and take care of them, and they remind you of your friends where they came from. Now this is Copper Queen, and it came from up here. But my buddy Bill next door had it, and so I got to start one time and look at Copper Queen. And it's a good grower. It's a hot grower. Toshiyokoi is one of the parents of it, and it grows hot. This plant is probably 3 to 4 years old, and it was just a lead that I cut off, and it's a wonderful one to grow. And it hangs in the shade house. It doesn't get a whole lot of sun, but it does pretty well in kind of a limited light situation if that's what you have. And then everybody in Florida ought to have dendrobiums. They come in a variety of colors and shapes. They grow like mad, and they bloom and bloom and bloom. I've got mine under my pool screen, and they sit there all summer. They get watered with rainwater. I do occasionally water. These are the Phalaenopsis kind, the big flat flowers. And this is a cross between a Phalaenopsis and an antelope. Now let me get the antelope. And this is an antelope. See, it's got the curly cues. And they'll make a big plant for you pretty quick. And they're very hardy. And they'll reward you with blooms all summer, which is what I really like to see. Now I've talked before about mounting orchids on cedar. And this was one of the first orchids I mounted. It was in a pot with cypress mulch. Didn't have many, had maybe 1 or 2 roots, and I could just see it was wanting to die. So I took it out of that pot and I put it on this. And you can see this piece of wood's pretty crumbly. Well, it's a piece of a River Birch that blew down in an ice storm in Kentucky around 2005, early 2005. So it's been on there for this long. The name of this plant is Campobello Newberry. And then isn't it a gorgeous white? Now sooner or later this is going to give out. And I'm going to take some cuttings off here and make 2 or 3 plants off of it. So if you don't have cedar, there'll be something else. Oak is good. Pine usually isn't, but even if you just get a river birch, that works pretty well too. Now this is an Angraecum. Angraecums come from Madagascar, and the most famous Angraecum is Angraecum sesquipedale. When Charles Darwin was on his famous voyage on the Beagle, they stopped at Madagascar because it's a land of odd things. And he found Angraecum sesquipedale. And sesquipedale has a big white waxy flower with a nectary sometimes a foot long. And he saw that, and Darwin knew orchids, species orchids have a specific pollinator. And he predicted, somewhere on this island there's a moth with a tongue long enough to get down there in it. Well, sure enough, 80 years later they found it. This is a sesquipedale cross, and it's been hanging on the west side of the shade house. It gets a right good deal of light in the afternoons, and it's got maybe 2 inflorescences coming. And they'll grow pretty slow, so sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it'll probably bloom. But aren't they pretty plants? And they do really well here in Florida. And you can see it's just on a mount is all it is. That way the roots grow and they don't rot in the media. Now for your collection, you ought to get all the Brassavolas you can. They're easy to grow. They grow fast and they are so fragrant. This is Brassavola Perrinii, and it came from Hoosier Orchids, I believe. My brother-in-law gave me this plant some years ago, and this year it must have had 100 blooms on it in the spring. It's a straight up species and it's a spring bloomer. Now what I do is, it gets cold enough down here, is that we put plastic over the greenhouses here and my shade house at home, and I use a clear plastic. And in the wintertime, the sun's low, and this hangs on the east side, and it sits up near the top, and it gets winter sun through the clear plastic. And I think it likes that. Like where it comes from is in the trees that might lose their leaves in the fall and winter, so it gets a whole lot more sun, and you're rewarded with Bloom City in the springtime. But get every Brassavola you can. They are remarkable plants. Now this is an Encyclia. They come from Central and South America. This is a primary hybrid. And you can see they have a bulb and they put out a long stem of flowers. And it sits on the west side of the shade house and gets a good shot of afternoon sun. You can see the color's kind of yellow, but this will give you some variety. And that's what I wanted to do today, to try to show some of the different kinds of orchids and show the variety you can get and the blooms you can get throughout the year. Now this is Neofinetia, and in Japan, growing them is an art form. They have shows with thousands of them that are just beautiful. Most people grow them, especially the Japanese. They grow them in beautiful pots with nothing but sphagnum moths, and every year or so they redo them and divide them. Well, I put this on a piece of cedar just to see what it would do, and it has rewarded me with a big group of plants. It's really grown well and done well, and these will do really good in Florida. It sits just inside the shade house on the east side, where it gets a lot of morning light, and they're really nice plants. And I think they're very attractive too. Now this is called Cattleya fidelensis. I bought it, it was still called Cattleya fidelensis. And the funkier piece of wood you can find to put it on, the neater looking mount it's got. And it grows on the west side of the shade house, and it smells like grape bubblegum and grows really well. This is probably a 5-year-old plant from when I got it, but they will really do well for you. And the other thing about growing mounted plants is some things don't do well in the pots. This is Susan Fender by Cattleya Dowiana, and everybody will tell you, at the Orchid Club one night, the president said, "How many of y'all got Cattleya Dowianas?" Nobody held up their hands. "How many of you have them and have bought them and killed them?" Well, there were several hands went up. So this way, this hangs on the west side of the shade house, gets a bunch of light and excellent drainage. So if you've got something that may be hard to grow, this may be the way to do it. And this is a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. I couldn't do much good with Susan Fender in a pot. The roots seemed like they would rot there. So this has been a wonderful surprise. Thank y'all so much. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And y'all come see us here at Orchid Trail. Thank you.